What up? What up? What up? This is Mike, the philosopher, here with a special guest. Keitu has joined me, and she's here to talk about Ready to Love. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm well in yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So it's I noticed that you had responded to one of my videos, and you put in a list of the top guys in Ready to Love. First of all, like I said, I gave you props that your list was pretty good, and it has some pretty good explanations of a lot of the guys. And I kind of wanted to talk more about that. First, let me ask you this. The two guys that left, let's talk about them first.
Sure.
Marvin and Christopher. What are your thoughts about those two guys?
I think the ladies did well. Marvin was a bit niched, and I think he would have been a better choice. Well, not really. I think his life is just a little too off the spectrum, a little too controversial for the caliber of women who are on the show. So I don't think his woman was there. It was just, I think he was taking chances as well. And then Christopher seems like a good guy, but based on the clips, him selling himself and having a whole pitch about why the ladies should consider him and his whole resume um, was a bit of a downer for him. So I'm glad the ladies took him off as well. Hopefully, he can reflect and learn from that
Yeah,
because women want to be pursued, but not like sold
right,
representative. So I hope he can learn from that. Um, he should pursue the woman, and then if they ask him questions, respond accordingly. It shouldn't just be like, "Hi, I did modeling. I went to medical school for 2 years."
right.
So I think the right people left. I like Moray. I don't know how to pronounce
Yeah,
his name.
Marie. Yeah, yeah,
Moray. I think yeah, he deserved to stay. Yeah.
yeah. Now, first of all, let's do a little do you mind me asking, where are you from? Are you in the United States, or where exactly are you from?
No, I'm not in the United States. I'm from South Africa.
You're in South Africa, so you're watching the show in South Africa.
Yes. So the reach is that far.
Yeah, yeah. So, some of the viewers may hear an accent and I want them to know kind of your perspective. So, tell me more about South Africa and South African dating there. Is it similar to what you're seeing on Ready to Love, or is it a bit different? Give us a little bit of nuance as to how dating is in South Africa.
um, it's similar, but I think what makes our dating a bit more different is that the roles are naturally assumed. We don't like what I've found is that a lot of the women on the show are always they either complaining about the men not pursuing enough, and the women I found in previous shows would always be, or some of the men would mention that the women are a bit too aggressive, which I find weird because in our dating scene, you never find yourself in that position. Typically, men pursue who they're interested in, and if you're not pursued as a woman, then you don't act. So I also find like American women are a lot more bold and going after the men that they like, whereas here in South Africa, you're told to just, present yourself, position yourself, and if the right man likes you, he'll pursue you, and if he doesn't, then they won't pursue you. And it's as simple as that. You don't go after a man who's not going after you, and you don't respond um, you don't initiate the process. You just regulate the
Really? Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
So in
it's
South
pretty.
Africa, you guys don't the ladies don't initiate the process, the men do. Um, Let me ask you a question. I asked this question to an American woman. Uh,
Sure.
what do you consider a traditional role for a man and a woman in South Africa? You could start with the guy and then go to the ladies.
Oh, okay, that's pretty. Well, for a guy, he'd have to be a provider,
Provide,
a protector, ideally,
protect.
traditionally.
That
And then,
seems universal for the men. That seems universal for the men. Provider and protector, no matter where they are in the globe. Women do expect their men to be providers and protectors. And I asked this question to an American woman. What are the traditional roles of a woman? So I'd like to ask you that. What are they for you ladies in South Africa?
um, so I'm not going to speak for all women because I think South Africa is pretty advanced as well. But I think most of the girls know, even if they are modern day women, at the end of the day, once you're from the streets and you go home, a woman's supposed to like support and like make whatever the man brings better. I don't know
Okay.
how
Okay.
to explain that in a so you
Yeah, because
yeah,
that's one thing I noticed is that the men roles are pretty clear and the women roles seem to be a little ambiguous, and that's one thing that I've noticed, and I just wanted to see if it was
yeah.
different in South Africa. um my answer would be that men want submission, number one, and nurturing, number two, and that's pretty much you know uh, globally too. But a lot of women don't really either know that or express that. They seem to be unclear as to what men are expecting from them. What do you think about that?
Um, yeah, a lot of maybe women, Western women, because for us, I think we know. I missed one more thing. Well, actually, no, I was speaking from the female perspective, but I think like respect is huge here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and rules of engagement is also a thing. Um, I think that's why, as a black woman in corporate, it's so challenging. It's tricky because when a man who's your father's age confronts you about something and you expect to challenge him in the boardroom, it's kind of awkward
Hmm.
because outside of the office, there are certain ways that you engage with men of a certain age or men in general or other women of a certain age or women in general. So respect is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so that's another thing I picked up on. I don't think it's a thing that side.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, respect is a huge thing. It's really what especially a lot of men want respect even before love, because it brings a balance in a relationship. Because if you respect him, then you're going to trust him. You're going to submit to him and things like that. So
yeah.
that is huge. So all that being said, I just wanted to get a perspective on some South African ways. Let me ask you one last question about that. Do you feel like uh, a lot of African women, South Africa all the way up to North Africa, do you feel like they have are they being a bit influenced due to TV programs and the internet? Do you think they're being influenced by the Western culture a bit? Do you see traditional African women kind of changing into modern women, or do you see them holding on to their traditions? Which way are they going, in your opinion?
Okay, so I'm just going to speak for South Africa. I can definitely see the influence of the West infiltrating the majority of the girls around here. But I think what's been reassuring is that when it comes to like traditional things and culture, most South African girls usually revert back and do what they expected to do. Like we have things like lobola and traditional weddings.
Hmm.
And even if you are marrying, let's say, a modern day woman or a girl who's this is what I've observed though, like girls who are I think they like the Instagram girlies, or what I found is that ultimately from there, if they need to attend a traditional event or attend a wedding, they put on their traditional regalia and they take off their wigs and they're back in the kitchen chopping vegetables and helping the, because that's what women typically do during our traditional ceremonies or weddings. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're the president of the country and you're a woman or a CEO of a major company. When we do have our traditional weddings or events, like, women have to do what women are supposed to do, and the men are supposed to do what the men are supposed to do,
Right.
regardless of the Western influence. So that's one thing I appreciate about South Africa now. But I must say, I have seen some of the girlies or the girls pulling back from traditions and trying to find their own way. But it's a few of them. But what I've observed is that even the modern day women, the independent girls, when we do have traditional events and um, have to serve or do what we do, they usually fall into line. Yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
those who fall in line, yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
And like I think I mentioned this as well in a message I sent you that the traditional girls or the more least or women who've had the least exposure to the West just know what to do. They just know what men want. And I think for me, I've always been interested in finding out why men want what they want. So yeah, the majority of the girls who haven't been exposed to the West typically just fall in line and do whatever, like they know their place. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
why.
yeah, they know their place, and if I'm being honest, I would say that um, the Western culture is kind of lost in the sauce right now. There's a lot of traditional ways that have been lost, and that's due to a lot of changes that happen in the West. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. It just is what it is, and those traditional roles have been displaced, and the men and the women seem to be a bit confused as to the duties. Men are still pretty clear for the most part on what their asks are, and that is provide and protect, and they can go anywhere in the world and they're expected to do that. But the women, they kind of lost a lot of those traditional ways that some South African and even African women, or women all over the world, seem to still hold on to. And again, it's not necessarily their fault, but it is something that is happening. um to get back to Ready to Love, you had Chris at number 4. So and they kind of let him go. Now, I had him at lower than that. I had him, I think, at number 6, behind Morier. Morier was number 5. I had Chris at number 6. Uh, were you surprised when Christopher went home?
No, I think after watching was it episode 6 or 5? Um,
6, yeah.
6. Yeah, I had to revise my ranking quite a bit. The other Chris definitely came up the list, or is it down? Um, and I would have swapped the Chris's as well. So my list would have looked like yours, I think. So yeah, Christopher
Oh,
would have
okay.
been, yeah, above Mario,
Morier, yeah.
Maury.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then Chris would have definitely went down on the ranking. Well, is it up or down? Sorry, this is so confusing.
Yeah, they both
But
named Chris, so it does get a little confusing. So Christopher would have went down on your list, and Chris would have went up on your list. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, yeah.
that so Chris would have gone all the way up. I not all the way up. Um, maybe after Phil, just before Phil. So he would have been fourth
Okay,
this
so
time
let
around.
so let's kind of go in chronological order here. Uh, your number 1 is who? Herbert.
Yes.
And what do you like about Herbert?
Um, I think I like his demeanor. Well, the way he presents himself. He's really calm, laid back. Um, he seems like a good conversationalist. I like the way he engages with the ladies. They um, seem to enjoy having conversations with him. He's also a bit funny, um, but he's not too animated. I also like, his energy is very comforting. I think,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
as a yeah,
yeah.
as a
Herbert takes me
mhm,
as a guy who really has a very high EQ, emotional intelligence, and he can kind of read the room pretty well, and he can kind of dissect what's going on and kind of diffuse it too. He's very quick witted. You know,
yeah, yes, yes,
if
and that's one
if
thing.
if
Mhm.
I'm being honest, I probably would switch. You know who I would switch Herbert with?
Ooh,
I think Quentin. I think Quentin would make a better husband than Herbert.
why?
I know that's kind of out of the blue, but if I had to do the list again, I would probably put Quentin number one. And the reason why is because Quentin is I feel like he's more ready to be a husband. Like with him and I see the way he looks at Janelle. I
Mm,
see he is so enamored with Janelle. He's in love with her face and everything. And I think the guy will give her the attention that she is in debt, in need of. And I just think that he's young. He's probably the youngest, but he's the most ready for that phase in his life. You know what I
yes,
mean? I think Herbert is a dope guy. He can read the room and everything like that, but I think Herbert can take or leave you. Okay. He don't he's not as I want to kind of say thirsty for a union as Quentin is. You see what I'm saying?
that that's such an interesting observation. Yeah, now that I think about it, I'm thinking of their interactions. I can see that. I can see that, and I feel like a guy like Herbert. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It does
because a
work.
lot of a lot of the women are saying that Herbert is not really giving, return messages and kind of he's not really putting in a lot of effort to kind of get to know them. And
Yes,
I think Herbert is probably more comfortable with himself, so he's not as ready as Quentin is. I think Quentin is ready to jump into the water. You see what I'm saying?
I
I
see.
think Herbert is kind of putting his feet in the pool and kind of dangling his feet a little bit. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
I
so
also think.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Okay. Sorry, my train of thought might not be as structured as yours, but
Mm.
spoke about Quentin and Janelle. After seeing this latest episode, I think they'd also make a better match. Because initially I thought Janelle and Herbert would work out, but having seen how confrontational and um, is cantankerous the word? Like Janelle is always ready, like she's ready to fight. Um, and Quentin may be impressed by that, but I think a guy like Herbert may be a little. He's so relaxed. I think that might put him off a bit, always being caught in the drama with a woman who's so like Janelle's ready. So I think Quentin would probably admire that in Janelle versus Herbert, who'd probably find it a bit annoying sometimes.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I think that Quentin will be ready. I think Herbert will probably he's a good guy, but he's not going to cater to a lot of these women in a way that I think that they would prefer. you know, there's a saying, don't go after the guy that you like, go after the guy that likes you. A lot of women heard that advice, and Quentin is that guy that likes her. You know what I
Yes,
mean? And
yes,
and Herbert is a guy that they like him, so he's kind of, surveying all women who is attracted to him, and he's gonna take his time. But Quentin has already made up his mind for the most part, it looks like from our perspective, that he is deep into Janelle. I mean, they talking about kids, marriage, adoption, they talking about all that stuff, right? So I just think that Quentin, even though he's the youngest, I think he's more ready for that phase in his life to have kids and get married. And he's so in love with Janelle Face that she could practically,
do
you know,
anything.
yeah, she could say anything. He'll. Oh, the sky is purple. Oh yes, Janelle, it's purple. I see it too. So he's just that type of guy that will probably end up being a better match for Janelle, because I think Janelle is a bit of a alpha type female, and is probably, and she's older than Quentin, so she's probably going to run the relationship. Um, I That's probably not a regular thing in South Africa. I don't know, but in America, that kind of happens. What do you think about that?
I think in that case, though, there are instances where the woman's like an alpha woman, but in that case, they usually wind up with men who are, you know, submissive, who complement. There's a very bold or strong woman with a more submissive husband. So yeah, that's not common, but it happens. So I think Janelle and Quentin on they complement each other, so it makes sense. It would
Okay.
work.
Yeah, yeah, they do. Uh, Talk to me about the Phil and Aries
Aries.
connection. What do you think about that?
That was so beautiful. I think like the chemistries they have like they set up for each other. It was so beautiful. I like the way they look at each other. It's
Yeah.
like definitely in the honeymoon phase of well, it just looked really sweet and sincere and um, I don't know if they chopped it up, but the conversation was pretty weird. But the body language and the engagement with each other seemed beautiful and sincere. And Phil was like really into Aries, which is sweet. I love that they seem like a pretty solid couple. I'd actually rather see Aries with Phil than Chris. Yeah,
You rather see Aries with who? Phil? Than
Phil than Chris.
Yeah, yeah, I would too. I would too. I think that Aries pretty much has made up her mind. At least that's the way it looks to me. She tried to play like there's still something there with Chris, but we seen how Aries moved with Chris, and then we seen how she moved with Phil, and it was night and day, right? It was like when she was with Chris, she was consoling him, it's gonna be okay. And she was like, she just didn't seem that into being with Chris. You know what I mean? And when she's looking at Phil, she got hard eyes, don't look at me like that, and they blushing.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
whole romantic scene. I actually think they kissed too. They kissed and hugged when they were at the car. So I think Phil kind of checks off a lot of the boxes that worries Aries, right? Because Aries was worried about, do you need more kids? Are you going to be a good father to my sons?
yes,
These are
yeah.
pretty big things about with her that she really needs guys to check off. And I think Phil kind of fits that more than Chris. What do you think?
100%. I completely agree. Paul has his son, she has her two boys. They've both previously been married before, so they're coming together with the same, lens of where they want to go or where they've been, or trying to refrain from being where they've been and moving forward together. So I think that's really nice. Um, what else? No, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Aries made her checklist very clear, well, evident to Phil, and I think from what we've seen, Phil matches or checks all the boxes, and he seems like a more solid guy. Sorry, I'm all about vibes and
Mhm.
energy, and I think Phil is more solid for. I'm not about vibes or energy, but I feel when I read people, it's more on a more intuitive level. Like I just yeah. So Phil seems a lot more solid and strong enough for a woman like Aries because I think Aries would definitely overpower Chris. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, but we'll get to Chris when we get to Chris. But yeah, I think this is beautiful. They're beautiful. I think they make a perfect match. If there's a couple that makes it to the end, I'm starting to think it would be these two. Um,
these two. Yeah, Phil,
yeah,
Phil and Aries.
communication also good. Yeah.
Yeah, they do make a pretty good couple. Um, One thing I didn't know about Aries is that she was divorced twice. That was kind of news to me. Yeah.
Oh, I think I may have missed that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, at the dinner, she said she was divorced twice, two times, and she asked Phil, "How did he think? What did he think about that?" And he said, "That's just part of your story." But
Um,
that was a bit of a shock to me. What about you? You didn't know about that, huh?
no, I was actually going to ask you, like, from a male perspective, like, how does that sound? What sort of
Yeah.
red flags are raised there?
Well, I have to say that is red flags from a male
Okay,
perspective. It wasn't for Phil because
no, yeah.
Phil is about an is it he's about as enamored with Aries as Quentin is with Janelle. These guys got hard eyes for these women. Okay. And practically no matter what comes out of these women's mouth, these guys are gonna green light it and okay it. Okay. That's just how it
Oh,
is. Cause they're they're attracted to these women and they kind of um accept whatever they say. So uh but from my perspective, that is red flags to me that she's been divorced twice.
okay,
And the guy that she was last married to, she left him. So he wanted to stay together with her and she left him. So yeah, that is red flags. That is red flags, you know.
okay. Um, I'm trying to think. Had okay, so she divorced him, and he wanted to work it out, but she let. Okay, okay, I can see why that would probably cause some concern. But why? I'm just curious. Like, I just think if she wanted to end it with someone, what's the red flag? I'm still like, what's so bad about
Well,
that?
well,
Like,
let me,
she,
do you remember Brandon?
yes. Yes, I remember
When
Brandon.
did they let Brandon go?
Like right at the beginning,
Day
but
one, practically, right?
yeah,
So that was clearly a red flag to the ladies. You've been divorced twice. Now, Brandon, his situation wasn't as bad as Aries because he married the same woman. He was trying to make it work. But
yeah,
Aries, I don't know if she married or and divorced the same guy twice, but I think it was two different guys. And in
mm,
my opinion, that's even worse
yeah,
to have two different men and you divorce them. So she has an offense just as bad as Brandon, but the women said it was a red flag with Brandon. So they let him go. They practically day one, right?
I hear
So
you.
why wouldn't it be a red flag with Aries? You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. I was just picking your brain. I just want to hear it from a guy's perspective because I know if I'm a
Well,
woman dealing with a guy who's been divorced twice, two kids, and his wife wanted to fix things with him, and he refused to return to her. I want to know how long he's been divorced for, why he refused to go back. Um, and why he's not committing to his vows. And he finds it so, um, why he would walk out of them twice. So that would be my red flag. And I guess the same could apply with Aries, but I was just curious to hear it from a male perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a video coming out, or it'll probably be out before this video will, and it's in the rankings, and I'm gonna break it down in that video on what I think about Aries and the Phil situation, and I break it all the way down in that video. So check that out. Check that video out when you get a chance. Okay. Um, let's go on to what's her name? Sierra. Now she said that she wanted a Birkin bag from Christopher. You remember that scene?
Yeah, 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 I do. But I thought she was just joking because she's so like I thought she was joking. Um, but that scene was yeah, they not complimentary at all. I don't think they would work in the short run or long run. I'm surprised they put them together on a date, but I guess maybe she was just trying to explore that connection.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was a quick no. From a lifestyle perspective, a career perspective, I just wouldn't see them. Oh, but he claimed he's a model and a former, I don't know.
Christopher is a model.
Yes, he said he previously modeled while he was going through his resume. So maybe, but I just think from a personality perspective, Chris is a bit literal. He would probably miss some of the sarcasm and jokes coming from Sierra's end, and yeah, that would make for tricky communication between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that they put Sierra on a date with Christopher, because Christopher was not getting any airtime at all. He wasn't on any dates. He didn't go on a date with any group dates. He wasn't going on any individual dates. It's as if as soon as he got on the cask and he was the wild card guy, he went to the hoedown. He couldn't dance, and you didn't see anything from him from that
Yeah.
point. So I'm glad she took him out on a date, because I was like, where is Chris? I wasn't seeing much of him. But
I
so
would,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Mhm. I would think they'd connect him with all the ladies he'd mentioned in the, do they call it the deliberation room or the men's room? Because he did mention that he had a connection with Kira, or he liked her,
Right.
and Lee, maybe. I think it would have been cool if they connected him with just to see him and his actual connections. But Sierra would have been that was the last person I thought of for Chris. But yeah, I guess it made for good TV as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I could understand where you're coming from. Yeah, him and Sierra probably wasn't. Sometimes I don't understand how they set these dates up. Like, it must be due to availability or something, because you know a lot of these dates don't make sense. Like, Quentin went on a date with Kira and Unique, and then he went into the men's group and said he wasn't attracted to either one of them. So I'm like, why did he go on a date with both of them to do the boxing thing if he knew before then he wasn't interested in either one of these ladies? It just didn't make sense to me, and it made me think that um it must be an availability thing, and they just throw people together to make a scene, because these people work during the day too, so everybody's not always available. So you got to grab people to get a date so you can get a scene in. Um,
yeah,
at least that's my guess. That's my guess as to what's going on, because a lot of these dates don't make sense.
yeah,
Um, I say that I thought that Sierra was kidding too. I just think that Christopher just couldn't take a joke. He couldn't roll with the punches. And he looked a bit shaken by the whole Birkin bag thing. And now, if that was Herbert, he would have rolled with it. He would have joked with her, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
because he has more of that. He's more quick witted, just like when they were in the when they did the improv thing, right? And they were on stage and they was doing the improv. He was right there with Sierra. She was talking about the babies, and he was like, my man can march, but they not that fast. He was quick witted with it.
yeah.
So that's one thing about Herbert. He would have taken it as a joke, or he would have thrown something back at her, but Christopher was just kind of off guard. Um, so another scene was with uh Chris and Jessica. You remember that scene? What did you
Um,
think? What did you think about that scene and what Chris was saying and what Jessica was saying?
I really like that scene. I think so. I love what Jessica did. I'm an acts of service sort of girl, so I think I would have done that because I think that that was such a beautiful display of like affection. I really like that. Um, the conversation was also good. It definitely brought Chris up in my ranking.
Mhm.
The way he communicates with Jessica, the
Yeah,
way he did her, that was really nice. I like the way they communicate with one another. They seem
right.
to hear each other. They seem to really understand what they're saying to each other instead of just hearing what they're saying to each other. Um, I think it's up to Jessica to either comply or or move on. But I think her and Chris make a good fit because Chris is a bit of a softer guy.
Mhm.
So I find her and I mean him and Jessica sort of complement one another. He's soft with her and she is a bit, tough, a strong woman. Alpha, I think you guys call it. Is she not? Is she alpha? I don't know.
Well,
She just
you
seems
say alpha. I say she. Yeah, I say she wants to be an alpha.
she just doesn't seem like an amiable, like a soft sort of woman. So I think that's what Chris is attracted to as well. Bold, independent, strong woman, and that's what Jessica is. She speaks her mind, but Chris is also diplomatic enough to sort of check her. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Chris said, watch how you talk to me. You talk to me so aggressively, and I need you to talk softer to me. What did you think? What went through your mind when he said that to Jessica?
I was like, I completely agree. I completely agree. There's just a certain way that you need to communicate with someone who you have affection for, someone who you would like to establish a relationship with, um, or just people in general. But more specifically, whoever you're in a relationship with. And men in particular. So that's
Right.
something most South African women know, well, for the most part, that the last thing you want to do is find yourself in the guy's face and you guys are fighting like that. Um, just sidebar, most South African women know that we don't direct men. We usually like make suggestions, and you
Okay.
suggest things, and then he makes the final decision. So I think Chris was maybe trying to mold Jessica to ask her to stop like being very directive and maybe speak to him the way he's sort of communicating with her type of thing.
Mhm.
So I completely agree with him. Jessica was probably very direct, and he probably doesn't appreciate that.
Do you remember what she said in her confessional and
I
her
do not.
response to that?
Please remind me.
She said, I like direct communication, and I'm not going to change that for a man.
So yeah, I think that would be um, what would probably deter her relationship and Chris from moving forward.
That's
That's unfortunate.
absolutely that's absolutely right. It would deter her and Chris. And this is probably why Chris don't call and text her as much as she would like, because he don't like the form of communication he's getting from her. And it looks like she's not willing to change how she moves. And that's fine, but
Mm.
it will dampen their chances of getting together. Um, one thing she asked for from Chris is that he communicate more with her and, do what he said he's going to do. What did you think about when she said that?
Yeah, that's also important. I agree with her. I think personally for me, if a guy's actions and words are inconsistent, that's already that raises a red flag,
Right, right.
and it's something that needs to be concerned. I mean, addressed immediately. So I'm glad she brought that up. Because that's definitely something that needs to be raised if it ever occurs. So that's disappointing as well. So I would think someone like Chris, I always thought he's upright, even though I placed him right at the bottom of the or close to the bottom of the list. I always thought he's an upright guy, so that was a bit disappointing.
One thing I noticed though is when they were done with their conversation, I was
Yeah.
actually proud of both of them. I was like,
Mm,
they had a grown up conversation. They didn't
yeah.
necessarily, uh, argue with each other. They took it into consideration. Now, Jessica heard Chris, and she, I don't think she's actually going to change, but at least she heard him, and
Mm,
he took what she said, and he said he's going to change too. But who knows if he's going to change? But I was with you when you said that you like the way they communicate. I agree 100% with you. When I seen that scene, I said, irregardless of the outcome of it, how they handled it and how they communicated, how they felt was stellar. It was a good job on both sides getting their point across and what was bothering them. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Um, okay, so uh Morier and Kira went on a date also. I think they went to like an ice cream place or something, and what are your thoughts about the Morier and Kira situation, or just them individually also?
um, I think I'm glad they had whatever conversation they had as well. I think they had somewhat of a, they also had a grown conversation to some degree.
Mhm.
The topic of discussion, though, for me, I found pretty interesting because Kira was busy calling, well, pointing fingers at Quentin. Well, no, she didn't. Let me just give her the benefit of the doubt there. She asked Quentin if he was interested or his preference was Caucasian women, and he answered. But I don't think he actually no, he did take it to heart because he wanted her off the show. But yeah, anyway, I just felt it was ironic that someone like Kira would be asking a guy like Quentin if he was interested in white women, because I would think someone like Kira would thrive more on a different show. I think she would have done far better on a multiracial show
on the
than
Bachelor instead on the
most.
Bachelor.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that instead of, yeah. I agree. I said to myself, she'd be better off on The Bachelor,
Yeah,
or a show like that. A show where there's a little bit more diversity. I just find it odd that she asked Quentin if he, dates Caucasian women, but she said in an interview that she did date Caucasian men, but it
okay.
it 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 didn't work out. But she did go on dates with them. She said she wasn't exclusive. So okay, so you've went on dates with Caucasian men. So why I don't understand why she need to know if Quentin went on dates with Caucasian women. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Kira, I know you call her pretentious princess. I was
Yeah,
thinking
I
that for her.
let me ask you, was that pretty rough on me to call her that, or is it fitting, or is it you see something else? What did you think about that?
I don't know, it's a little rough, but she, because I don't know her background, and I mean, we have people like that here in South Africa as well who are raised in predominantly white communities and assimilate or assume that sort of culture, and they're like, yeah, okay,
Right,
they have
right.
that kind of disposition, or when they present themselves, they like that, but it doesn't. That may be who she is. I think she may just be very Caucasianized or just very much in that culture,
Mhm.
but attracted to black men. So I'm like, I don't know if she's pretentious, but she does give off like princess, like an energy that can be a bit much. She's a bit much. So, but
Yeah.
you are entitled to your own opinion. But I was like, maybe that's just who she is. Maybe she's just like that. That is her. And
Well,
she's not.
I don't, yeah, I don't doubt that that's her. That is her personality, and I don't knock her for being a product of her environment. If her environment was cheerleader around, a lot of Caucasian people, she went to college. She was that it was that way. She was on the Dallas Cowboys. She's a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, and she, that's just her life, and I don't necessarily knock her for that. I
Mhm.
never knock her for being who she is and acting how she's acting.
Okay.
I knock her for being a bit hypocritical, being a hypocrite, because if you've dated white men, why do you care if Quentin dated white women? You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? If
Okay. I
if
get
if
that.
if you don't if you talk about if you're the person bringing up culture, why are you mad when people bring up culture to you? Then you say
Okay.
you're getting disrespected. So what I don't like is the hypocrisy. Now, I do find her a bit pretentious. That's just me. I do find
Yeah.
her that. I do find her the this whole princess thing, and she kind of takes me as a bit of a bit spoiled or something like that. But I don't think she's a bad person. I think she's a product of her environment. But I see where she has some growing to do. And
Yes.
I'm not knocking her. Everybody got their journey. Hers is just a little bit more visible, you know.
Mm,
Watch your hypocrisy, okay?
mm,
Watch your hypocrisies and how you move. If you ask somebody culture questions, don't feel disrespected when they ask you culture questions like Morier. Okay, if Morier is asking you, are you for your people and stuff like that, don't start getting offended then. If you've dated white guys and you go ask Quentin if he's dated white women, don't it got very annoying to me because I was seeing the hypocrisy. I see where she can grow. I'm not gonna hold her to it because I know she was pretty young. So I said I see where she got some growing to do, but I kind of let up on Kira a little bit. I'm not as I was giving her the blues for a while, but I've since kind of let up on her. Um, but yeah, I
but
still
I think. Mhm.
go ahead.
I think now that you've explained or validated why you thought she was a bit pretentious or hypocritical, it makes complete sense. I think you looked at it from a very broad perspective, not just her behavior, but rather the way
Right,
she her encounters with all the different people, which I do agree is hypocritical. Um, and if she dated white men previously, why does it matter if any of the guys had dated any race at all? She should have never brought that up at all. As
exactly.
someone who had previously, Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly, exactly. If you've dated that, if your best friends are that, if you've dated black white men, that's the last thing you should be bringing up. Okay, it's just the
yeah.
last thing you should be bringing up. You shouldn't. It shouldn't really matter. Obviously, it doesn't bother you in your own culture. Those are the people that you're hanging around. Those are the people that you're going on dates with. So don't bring it up. Don't be a hypocrite. Now, in one of my other videos, I said that um she is a bit insecure. And I said that she was the person who was probably the black sheep of her group, and she was trying to date white guys. This is before I seen her interview. I said she was trying to date white guys and it wasn't working. And then I seen her interview and she said, yeah, she dated white guys and it wasn't working. So I was just, this is just maybe my experience that kind of caught that, but I was right about that. But I don't, I kind of let up on Kira, especially since I found out how young she was. She was barely eligible to get on the show. So she
Okay.
was 29 when they recruited her, and you have to be 30 to be on the show. And
Yeah.
her birthday hit a month before they started filming.
Okay.
So she turned 30 in January. They started filming in February. So
Oh,
yeah, so she's the youngest on the show. And I said, okay, well, just some life lessons. Maybe she'll look back at this. She'll kind of look at herself and kind of self-correct. But
mm,
um,
definitely.
it is what it is. So um,
More.
so
I'm sorry.
I one last thing about who else was it? Marvin that left? Yeah. What did you think about yeah, I think you said Marvin was he was a little too niche, right?
Yes.
So tell me, what do you think about the women? Like I kind of gave you a bit of a ranking of the men. What would you rank the women real quick? From maybe 1 to 7 or 8 or something like that. What would you rank the women?
Mm, I think I'll definitely put Kat as number one.
Okay.
She seems comfortable and ready to love. Has the least red flag so far. I agree with that. Um, and she's not like desperate to have a child, as you mentioned in one of your videos, or desperate for anything. She just seems like she's open to being in a relationship and seeing where that goes, which is, I
Right.
think, a good place to be. And then second, I would have Jessica there.
Okay.
Oh no,
Okay.
actually, I'm not sure. It's between Jessica and Lee because I can see I really like Lee at the beginning. I would have placed her as number one, but then I remember you mentioning the fact that she.
Looks like we lost Keitu. So I'm gonna wrap this up and say we'll get back to it and talk more about Ready to Love in another episode. Thanks for watching. Hit the like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what y'all thought about her take on things, her being from South Africa. I thought it was pretty interesting to get her perspective. Um, she brings a pretty good perspective from a female point of view and from a different culture. So I thought that was dope. Again, she's in South Africa, so the connections sometimes on the internet don't always gel well. So all that being said, again, hit that like, share, and subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.